So, you don't want to speak to my female coworker and would rather speak to a man? How about we don't? This was a few years ago when I was around 18 years old. I worked at a large chain automotive parts store. The store had roughly equal number of male and female staff. And being automotive, the woman seems to get a decent amount of men and other women who would ask for one of the boys to help them instead of the lady. I was in the back of the store loading stock onto a trolley to run onto the floor when one of my female coworkers, mind you, she worked here for 7 years compared to me at this point only been 3 months of employment, comes to find me and asks me to help out a customer. I gave her a puzzled look and asked her why she needs help because she knows a lot more than I do, considering she's been working here for over 7 years. She explained that she was standing at the service desk and a customer came up and asked her to get one of the men to help him. She tried to explain to the customer that she is more than competent to help him, but he kept insisting that he needs a man who works there to help him. So after hearing this, I decided to say, fuck it. I might as well have some fun with this customer. I told her to follow me back to the desk where the customer was and just to let me sort it out. I get to the customer and ask what he needed. The customer explained what he needed and what part, and I just gave him a puzzled look for a moment. I looked at the customer and said, I'm sorry, I don't actually know how to help with that one. And then I turned to my coworker and say, actually, she's an expert in the field and she knows more than I do, and I'm sure she can help you. The customer looked really annoyed at this point and asked me to get another man to help him. And on cue, one of my other male coworkers who had overheard the entire conversation and walked over. The customer looked at him and asked the exact same question he asked me. And my male coworker turns to the customer and says, oh, actually, she is an expert on that particular part. She's probably the best person to ask that question to before my coworker went off wondering again. The customer begrudgingly got her help on the matter and walked out without talking to anyone else in the store.
Is this the worst real estate investor ever? So, you want me to coerce an inspector after someone else did the work? This happened years ago. I had just started working as an independent electrician, and one day I received a call from a new customer. He was one of those people that flips homes in lower income neighborhoods. I'll call him Todd, but honestly, I've forgotten what his name is. Todd asked me to meet him at a vacant house he recently bought to give him an estimate for a full rewiring job. He was 30 minutes late, so I was already unimpressed with him. Upon entering the house, which was right after a rainstorm had passed through, we found an inch of water covering the hardwood floors. There was water pouring out of small holes in the columns on the front porch. Everything was soaked. Instead of showing me around, Todd called his business partner and brother and spent the next 20 minutes cussing him for not fixing the roof. I'm standing around and listening to his man-baby rage on full display. The whole time I'm thinking there's no way I'm going to work for this guy. His fuse was way too short and his anger was out of hand. I gave him a price, which admittedly was the I don't want to do this job price, and didn't hear back from him. Until months later. Todd called me later that year. He explained that he had found an electrician from 3 states away, and had paid the electrician with ceramic tiles instead of cash. The problem now? Well, he needed an inspection from the city electrical inspector. I agreed to meet the inspector for him, which I would bill him for. I went back to the house about 20 minutes before the inspector showed up and saw numerous issues. When the inspector arrived, we walked through together. Every issue I saw, the inspector also saw. He pointed them out, and every time, I agreed with him that the work was not up to code. This inspector kept looking at me with a puzzled expression. After we did a complete walkthrough, I finally explained to the inspector that I didn't do any of the work and was hired to get him to pass the inspection. He asked me if I thought he should, and I told him absolutely not. I got paid for my time, I got paid to repair all the violations, and I formed a strong relationship with that inspector, who was always lenient with me on all my future jobs.
My boss blamed
There
me
we
for
go.
creating a hostile environment. I used to be a server at a major restaurant chain that you see in every mall in the US, and my particular location just happened to be in one of the wealthier parts of the country. Because of that, a large percentage of the clientele wanted their dishes a certain way. There were some oddball regulars, like the one lady who wanted a Caesar salad with no dressing, but 3 whole lemons to squeeze on the lettuce. But 99% of the time
There we
they'd ask
go.
for
What a good
rigatoni
pass.
instead of penne in a
Good pass
dish,
for the
or red
win.
onion instead of yellow on a burger, or something of that nature. The thing about this chain,
I
though,
got the
is
pass
that
for the
technically
win.
you're supposed to charge them for substitutions like that. So, for instance, if a guest wanted a different kind of dressing on a salad, it might be a 10-cent charge. Or if they wanted Swiss instead of cheddar on their burger, it would be like a 15-cent charge. As a server, you were supposed to know all the upcharges, but because there were like 26 pages to the menu, it was daunting enough to just memorize what we even had. But obviously no one ever charged for these things, because what's an extra 15 cents on a $200 tab, especially when you're in the weeds and you're pretty sure the host stand wants you to have a mental breakdown. Not only that, but because rich people tend to be the stingiest furs you'll ever meet, we would never charge them because they would instantly complain if you did. And the restaurant's policy was essentially the customer is always right no matter how wrong they were. We even had regular grifters that would order the wrong thing and then complain and get an entire free meal every freaking time. So one normal day, I'm serving a table and someone asks for goat cheese on their salad instead of feta, which is supposed to be one of those 10-cent changes. I obviously don't add the upcharge, just like I hadn't for any of the other countless times in over 3 years. And like 15 minutes later the new manager, I'll just call him Brad, comes along and pretty much chews me out over it. Keep in mind, this is Brad's second day on the job and he came from the other side of the country to replace our beloved former manager who left to manage her own restaurant. Dude hadn't even introduced himself to me, and he comes out of nowhere to yell at me for not doing the upcharge.
I don't know, man. I don't know if
I
feel
explained
good
to him
about
why
this.
I didn't, and how it was pretty much a directive from the GM not to do upcharges because of the 99% chance that a complaint and free meal would follow. But Brad just blah 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 some more and tells me I need to add the upcharges or I'd get written up. So when the next table, a party of 7 that had a $500-ish bill, changes literally every dish, I added the upcharges, which totaled like $1 at most. When I dropped the check they freaked out over all the upcharges, even though I informed them of the charges when they ordered. The
Okay.
itemized receipt made it look so much more severe,
Let's hope
and they
this guy can't
demanded to
shoot
speak to the
threes.
manager. Instead of getting any of the other managers I had worked with for years, I grabbed Brad and made him deal with them. He ended up having to comp all $500-ish because he insisted I charge an extra $1 for all the substitutions. But did he learn his lesson? Nope. So I did it over and over again to the detriment of my bank account. Most people still tipped me though, so that was nice, and I got to watch tables routinely chew him out over the charges. This continued for a month or so until he finally relented, and not too long after I was suspiciously fired for creating a hostile work environment while on vacation.
Thank you for watching. If you have any stories that you would like to share, please comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and notify. See you next time.